So my name is Kelsey Blum, and I'm going to be talking about who's right to write. And this is referencing, letters of recommendation for applying to graduate school, jobs, anything that you might need a recommender for, and how to go about that process. So why do we need letters of recommendation? Many, if not all, programs that you will plan to apply to will look for a letter of recommendation in your application. Typically, these are used to get a better understanding of the applicant from someone who knows the person well. So it gives that outside perspective and the opportunity for the applicant to stand out in a particular way from another person's eyes and report. This allows programs to see the strengths identified from someone else other than the applicant and get a general sense of what it's like working with the applicant that is applying to their program. It's important to consider who you want to ask. So you want to make sure that you're asking someone who really knows you and will give their full attention to your letter. An option could be if you have a professor, preferably one who has seen you in more than just one class and can attest to you and your work ethic inside and outside of the classroom. Mentors are another great option when considering who to ask. It's important at a higher level of education to have someone that you can identify as a mentor, whether this be a professor, an advisor, a boss, anything like that. It could even be a neighbor or your supervisor. Either way, mentors motivate you and want to see you prosper and are excellent people to ask for a letter of recommendation from. If you are part of an organization or some sort of club, there is always an advisor of that club. Take the time to get to know those people, develop a relationship, really know them on a personal level and allow them to see you on a personal level. With this, you will be able to ask an advisor, especially if you're in a leadership position for that organization. Academic advisors typically know your schedule pretty well. So your long and short-term goals, as well as where you stand with academics. So for this reason, they are also a great option and can attest to your ability to schedule classes, time management, how you're doing in your classes, and even touch on work ethic. If you currently are working at an internship position, you will likely have a supervisor or higher up that sees you and your work. This would be a great person to ask for a letter of recommendation from to allow you to have a perspective directly from your field of choice. So that intern position might be giving you that direct experience that you are applying for or hope to get in your future. And having a supervisor or someone that sees you doing that work would be helpful in beefing up your experience on your application. A boss or supervisor at a workplace is also an option, as these people can attest to your work ethic as well. So just to wrap up this slide, again, people that you can ask are professors, mentors, organization advisors, academic advisors, internship staff, or a boss at work. So how do I go about the asking process? How do I ask someone to write me a letter of recommendation? It's important to choose your letter of writers wisely. You will want to choose someone who will give their attention to your letter and really incorporate what makes you an ideal student. Additionally, it is important that when you go to ask for a letter, you are letting them know why you chose them, emphasizing any work that you did together, what you appreciate about them, or the connection that they might have to what you would like to do in the applying process. Additionally, it is important that when you go to ask for a letter, you are letting them know why you chose them, letting them know what you valued about their work with them and why they may be a good fit to write your letter. You can also mention that you would like them to address in the letter. So maybe there was a particular situation you handled well, a class you excelled in, or a project you accomplished successfully. These are things that you can let your writer know to ensure what you want is covered and included in your letter. So for example, if you were working with a research mentor and, helped develop a study, that's something you can mention to them, to the person that you are asking for the letter, saying something like, I really appreciated my time working with you. I think that I really excelled when I helped to develop this study or organize the spreadsheets or did the data analytics on SPSS, things like that to really highlight what you would like covered. It's also important that when you ask for a letter, you specify that you are asking if they can write you a strong letter of recommendation. While the person you are asking may know that you are looking for them to speak highly of you, it's important to indicate this. Oftentimes, people will just ask for a letter of recommendation, which is great. However, the word strong really encourages the idea that you want it to be something that's really going to exemplify you on a personal level and really make you stand out considering other applicants. So what should I include in my requests? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the asking process. So I think this can be the most anxiety-provoking part. I know it can be awkward asking someone to take time to help you out or really emphasizing what you want covered. So we'll spend a little time on this. So this is something that can be done over email or in person. When asking, I think it's important to provide a rationale for why you chose to pick that person, as we talked about before, such as I enjoyed our time working on this project. This will open up the door to show that you did put in thought and effort into why you picked this person and remind them of the work that you have done together. I think it's also important to attach a resume and a cover letter if appropriate. This will give the recommender the opportunity to review what your goals, intentions of applying to grad school are, and aid in writing a letter that is very specific and relevant to you. If you do ask over email, I would recommend offering to discuss your thoughts or what you're expecting the person to write. Maybe at their office hours or setting up an in-person meeting if necessary. So as I mentioned, the asking process can be awkward and maybe you're wondering, I don't know how I would word something like that. So here I provided a sample from Doyle 2020. I'm going to go through and read it. So that gives anyone the opportunity to write down any notes. Maybe there's a particular section that stands out to you or you like the wording of and allow you to jot down notes or anything that you would like to do. So just the disclosure that this was not written by me, and again was from Doyle 2020. So dear Professor Lee, I have greatly enjoyed and benefited from the 4 classes that I took with you over the past 3 years. I was hoping that you might know me well enough and have a high enough regard for my abilities to write a general recommendation for my credentials file. As you can see from the attached cover letter, I am targeting positions in the publishing industry, which will draw upon my writing and editing skills, as well as my organizational ability. I have included a summary sheet to refresh your memory about some of my key papers, including my senior thesis. I have also attached my resume, which will bring you up to date about some of my accomplishments outside of the classroom. Please let me know if you are comfortable endorsing my candidacy for jobs in the publishing industry. I would be happy to answer any questions and provide further information which will help you to write your recommendation. Can we meet during your office hours to discuss this further? Thanks so much for all you have done for me and for taking the time to review this request. So again, this request is stating why this person picked this letter of recommendation writer. Presented the information professionally and in an organized manner, attached a cover letter and a summary statement to really emphasize, this is what I'm looking for, this is what the position entails. Asked again professionally and, making sure that the offer is there, that if the person would like to meet during their office hours or get more information in order to write a strong letter, that opportunity is there. So when should I ask? It's important that you are giving enough time for your recommender to write your letter. Letters take time and you want to make sure that it's written well thought out and appropriately. So with this, the more time that you give them, the better. It is recommended that you give a recommender about 4 weeks to write your letter. This means that you will need to consider your deadline, having your necessary materials prepared should the recommender need them. When you send that request, having all of that ready, such as your resume, your cover letter, things like that. You will also need to know your deadline. So making sure that the recommender is aware of the deadline, and if it's getting close to the deadline, you're not hearing anything, maybe giving them a gentle nudge to remind them of that deadline coming up. If you can give more than 4 weeks, that's great too. People are busy, and it is preferred that you let the recommender know a date that you would need your letter by to give them a timeline and keep them organized, as well as keep yourself organized and not scrambling at the end to get everything together. And finally, what do I do after I receive my letter? So, if someone takes the time to write you a letter of recommendation, it's important to follow up with those who wrote you a letter and say thank you. So this can be done over email, an e-card, or if you're old school like me, a handwritten thank you card. If you are close with those who you wrote your letter or who wrote the letters for you, you may also want to let them know how your application process went. So maybe give them a heads up of, I heard back from these schools or this job, these positions, or even let them know where you ended up committing to. These are important things to remember, and the people took their time out of their semesters to write these letters for you. I'm sure that they would be interested to hear how the application process went for you. So to sum up this presentation, we talked about why you need the letters of recommendation, who you can ask, how to ask, what should you include in the request, as well as when should you ask, when is a good time to ask, and then what to do after. If you have any further questions about any of this process, I really encourage you to reach out to a professor in your program, or anyone who may be a good mentor or fit for helping you through this process, preferably someone that went through this process themselves. Additionally, if you are attending any of the synchronous sessions today or for Bridge Day, I encourage you to ask if the opportunity presents itself. We are here to help you and happy to answer any questions you may have.